My dear friend, let me lead you on a journey of healing, divine affirmation, and unshakable self-worth today. One that will mend your wounded heart, restore your confidence, and anchor you in the profound truth of your value in God's eyes. I want to talk about those painful moments when you realize you were someone's backup plan, not their priority in relationships, opportunities, or endeavors. The sting of being a secondary choice, only considered when their first options failed, can feel like a deep rejection, tempting you to question your worth or settle for less than you deserve. But I'm here to tell you that your value is not defined by those who see you as a fallback. No, no, no. You were their backup plan because their vision was too limited to recognize your God-given brilliance. But God's purpose for you is to shine as His priority in a plan crafted uniquely for you. I'm going to unpack why this happens, share Dr. Myles Munroe's wisdom on your inherent worth, and show you how to live so radiantly that you embrace your divine value and trust God to lead you to where you're cherished as a priority. Let's begin with a foundational truth. You were their backup plan, not because you lack worth, but because their limited perspective couldn't grasp the irreplaceable value God placed in you, and His purpose is to position you where you're celebrated as His priority. I need you to let that truth sink deep into your spirit. When you're treated as a backup, whether it's a partner who turned to you only after their preferred choice didn't work out, a job that offered you a role when their top candidate fell through, or a friend who valued you only when no one else was available, it's not a sign of your inadequacy. It's a reflection of their inability to see the treasure you are, shaped by their priorities, biases, or spiritual blindness. You see, every one of you watching me right now is a divine masterpiece, created with a purpose that makes you a priority in God's plan. As Psalm 139:14 declares, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful, I know that full well. When you're their backup plan, it's not a verdict on your worth. It's God's redirection to a place where you're valued as a first choice. Picture this for a moment. Think of the biblical figures who were treated as secondary by others, only to be exalted as God's priority in His divine plan. Do you think their worth depended on human preference? Do you think God didn't affirm their value? Far from it. Look at David, overlooked by his family as the youngest son, not their priority for leadership, yet God chose him as king over Israel. Look at Leah, not Jacob's first choice compared to Rachel, yet God honored her with a lineage that included Judah, an ancestor of Christ. Look at Jesus, not the priority of the religious leaders who sought a different Messiah, yet God's ultimate priority for the salvation of the world. Their stories show that being a backup plan in human eyes is often a divine setup for God's greater purpose. And the same is true for you. When you're not their priority, it's not a diminishment of your worth. It's God's protection, guiding you to where you're cherished from the start. Here's a vital principle I want you to embrace. You were their backup plan because their vision couldn't align with God's purpose for you, but your worth is defined by His design, and He's leading you to relationships and opportunities where you're a priority. Your life is like a divine tapestry, woven with God's purpose, and not everyone has the discernment to see its beauty from the outset. When people treat you as a backup, it's often because they're focused on their own agendas, superficial desires, or misjudgments of your gifts. God uses their oversight to steer you toward those who will see your worth immediately, aligning with His plan for you. Here's my wisdom. Don't settle for being anyone's backup or let their choice erode your confidence. Trust that God sees your worth, surrender their oversight to Him, and focus on stepping into the purpose He's designed where you're celebrated as a priority. Now, let's dive into why you were their backup plan and how to navigate the pain of being a secondary choice. People may treat you as a backup because they prioritize what seems more appealing, convenient, or prestigious at first, overlooking your unique value. They may turn to you only when their preferred options fail, driven by necessity rather than genuine appreciation. Sometimes their actions feel like a personal rejection, fueling feelings of inadequacy or a desire to prove your worth. Whatever the reason, being a backup can leave you feeling undervalued, invisible, or tempted to accept less than you deserve. You may struggle to walk away, fear further rejection, or question your value. But here's my guidance. Don't let their oversight define your worth. Their choice reflects their limited vision, not your divine value. Trust God to place you where you're a priority, release their rejection, and shine boldly in the purpose He's calling you to. Let me share a story to make this vivid. I once knew a woman who was a backup plan in a romantic relationship. She loved her partner deeply, but he only committed to her after his first choice rejected him. She felt like a consolation prize, her worth questioned. The pain was crushing. She wondered if she'd ever be a priority. But she turned to God, praying for healing and trusting his affirmation of her value. She walked away from the relationship, focusing on her purpose, and pursued her passion for community outreach. There she met people who valued her from the start, including a partner who saw her as a priority. Her ex later expressed regret, but she was already thriving where she was cherished. She was his backup plan, not because she lacked worth, but because his vision couldn't see her light. The pain was real, but it was a sign. God's redirection led her to a place where her value was undeniable. That's the power I want you to seize. You were their backup plan because their perspective couldn't match God's purpose, but your worth is divine and God is leading you to where you're a priority. Their oversight is a testament to God's protection, a challenge to release their choice, a reminder to live for his purpose, not their validation. When you refuse to let their rejection define you, when you trust God's plan, you become unstoppable. And that's when God's glory shines. They may realize their mistake later through regret or reflection, but you'll already be flourishing where you're valued. Your life a beacon of his faithfulness. Here's the key. Their choice is not your mission. Your mission is to live so fully in God's purpose that your worth radiates, glorifying him. Now let me speak to those of you who are carrying the pain of being a backup plan, like a wound that lingers. Some of you are holding on to the hurt, replaying the moments when you were chosen second, letting it convince you that you're not enough. You're telling yourself, I'll never be a priority, or I need to prove I'm worthy. My friend, you've got to release that burden. Their choice is not your identity, it's their limitation. And God affirms your worth. You are not defined by who sees you as a backup. You are defined by the God who created you, who prioritizes you, who has a purpose for you. Stop giving their oversight power over your future. God has a place where you'll be cherished as a priority, but you must let go of their rejection to embrace it. Here's how you heal and move forward. First, anchor your worth in God's priority. The way you view their rejection shapes how you live. If you see it as a verdict on your value, you'll stay trapped in doubt. But if you see it as God's redirection, you'll live with confidence. Start telling yourself, I am God's priority for his purpose. Spend time in his word, letting verses like Isaiah 49:16 remind you that God says, see, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Say, I am chosen by God. My worth is divine. I am destined for his glory. When you anchor your worth in God's priority, you stop seeking their validation and start shining where you're meant to. Second, surrender their oversight to God. One of the reasons you were their backup plan is because God is protecting you for his plan. So don't cling to their approval or settle for being a secondary choice. Bring their choice to God in prayer, asking him to heal your heart and guide you to where you're a priority. Trust that he sees every moment you felt overlooked, and his purpose will place you where your light is cherished. Journal your feelings, pray for peace, or share with a trusted friend to release the pain. When you surrender their oversight to God, you free yourself to walk in his purpose, and that surrender empowers you to shine without their weight. Third, embrace your unique value. Being a backup can make you feel less than, but your gifts, heart, and purpose are irreplaceable. Celebrate what makes you you, your talents, your passion, the ways you reflect God's glory. Take steps to nurture your value, pursue your dreams, build relationships that prioritize you, step boldly into opportunities. Embracing your value doesn't mean proving yourself to them. It means shining as God designed you. When you embrace your unique value, you attract those who see you as a priority, and your confidence becomes a testimony of God's truth. Now, let me talk to those of you who are afraid of being a backup plan again. Some of you are holding back from loving, dreaming, or stepping out because you're scared of being overlooked or chosen second once more. I understand that fear, it's real after such pain. But here's the truth. You can't live God's purpose by hiding from risk. Loving, serving, pursuing your calling, these come with the chance of rejection, but they also come with the promise of God's perfect plan and provision. Don't let the fear of being a backup keep you from God's path. Trust that God is your validator, that he's preparing places where you'll be a priority, that your worth is secure in him. The relationships, opportunities, and purposes God has for you are waiting, and you'll find them when you step out in faith. Let me share a story from my own life to illustrate this. Early in my ministry, I was invited to contribute to a project, but only after their preferred leaders declined. I poured my heart into it, but felt like a fallback, my efforts undervalued. The pain of being a backup was heavy. I doubted my worth, tempted to overprove myself, but I turned to God, surrendering their oversight, trusting His affirmation of my value. He led me to a new initiative where my gifts were sought as a priority and my impact grew, touching lives in ways I never imagined. The original team later acknowledged their mistake, but I was already shining where I was cherished. I was their backup plan, not because I lacked, but because God had a greater purpose. The pain was real, but it was a lesson. It taught me to trust God's priority, to embrace my value, and to shine for His glory. It propelled me to a purpose that changed lives. So let me ask you, what's the pain of being a backup plan stopping you from doing? What dream are you hesitating to chase because you're afraid of being overlooked again? What purpose are you delaying because you're stuck on their validation? My friend, you don't need to be their priority to shine. You need God's purpose. You need your own faith, your own resilience, your own trust in the one who sees you as a priority. Their oversight may hurt, but it can't stop you unless you let it. Get up, release the pain, and start living the destiny God created for you. The world needs your light, and no one's choice can dim God's plan. Now let's talk about how to make your life so radiant that their oversight becomes a mere whisper in your story. Not to prove them wrong, but to live so fully in God's purpose that your light glorifies Him. First, live for God's glory. When you're treated as a backup, it's tempting to seek their approval, but that's a trap. Instead, live to honor God. Use your gifts, pursue your calling, shine your light for His kingdom. When you live for God's glory, your worth shines where it's meant to, attracting those who value you as a priority. Second, live with confidence. Their oversight can make you doubt, but confidence in God's priority is your strength. Trust that you are enough, that God's plan is perfect, that your purpose is secure. Step out boldly, knowing that the one who created you will guide you. When you live with confidence, you show the world and yourself that their choice didn't break you, it built you. And that confidence inspires others to embrace their worth in their own rejection. Third, live with purpose. Don't let their oversight derail your focus. Wake up every day asking, God, how can I fulfill your plan today? How can I shine where I'm a priority? Purpose is your anchor. It keeps you steady through the hurt. When you live with purpose, you create a life that's magnetic, drawing in opportunities and relationships that celebrate your light. And those who saw you as a backup may see their error, but you'll already be thriving where you're valued, declaring God's faithfulness. Let me take this further. To truly rise above their oversight, you've got to cultivate God confidence. God confidence is the assurance that your worth comes from the one who created you, not the ones who saw you as a backup. Spend time in His presence, letting His word remind you of your value. Ephesians 2:10 says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." Believe it, live it. When you're grounded in God confidence, you create an inner light that no rejection can extinguish, and that light attracts those who are meant to walk with you. Another key is to practice gratitude. Being a backup can make you focus on the pain, but gratitude shifts your perspective to God's faithfulness. Be thankful for your worth, your purpose, the places where you're a priority. Be thankful for the lessons, the growth, the opportunities God's redirection brings. Gratitude doesn't erase the hurt, but it lifts you above it, reminding you that God's plan is greater than their oversight. Try this. Every day, write down one way God is affirming your value. Over time, gratitude will transform how you experience rejection, making it a stepping stone to your destiny. Let me share another story to drive this home. I once met a man who was a backup plan for a leadership role in his community. He was dedicated, but the group only turned to him when their first choice failed. He felt like an afterthought, his worth questioned. The pain was deep. He wondered if he'd ever be a priority, but he surrendered the hurt to God, trusting His worth was divine. He focused on his purpose, starting a mentorship program where his leadership was sought from the start. The community later invited him back, regretting their oversight, but he was already shining where he was a priority. He was their backup plan, not because he lacked, but because God had a greater purpose. The pain was real, but it was a lesson. It taught him to trust God's priority, to embrace His value, and to shine for His glory. It propelled him to a purpose that changed lives. Here's another principle: embrace God's redirection. Their oversight can make you feel unworthy, but God uses it to guide you to your true path. Trust that He's closing doors where you're a backup and opening ones where you're a priority. Your job is to walk in faith, not to settle for less. When you embrace God's redirection, their choice becomes a divine push toward your destiny, and that perspective empowers you to shine where He leads. Another practical step is to celebrate your worth. Being a backup can make you feel diminished, but celebrating your God-given value shifts your focus to His truth. Acknowledge your gifts, your heart, the ways you reflect God's glory. Take bold steps, share your talents, serve others, chase your dreams. Celebration keeps you rooted in God's affirmation, reminding you that their oversight didn't define you. It revealed the strength of your divine calling. Let me close with this. You are not defined by those who saw you as a backup plan or their limited vision. You are defined by the God who created you, who prioritizes you, who affirms your worth. You are radiant. You are irreplaceable. You are a vessel of divine purpose. Their oversight is not a verdict. It's a lesson, a sign, a call to shine brighter. Anchor your worth in God's priority. Surrender their oversight to Him. Embrace your unique value. Live for His glory with confidence and purpose. Cultivate God confidence, practice gratitude, embrace His redirection, and celebrate your worth. When you do these things, you'll live a life so vibrant that their oversight will fade in the light of your purpose, and you'll glorify God while inspiring others to trust His plan. So go out there, my friend. Shine with unyielding brilliance. Chase your purpose with unrelenting faith. Let being a backup plan be the lesson that fuels your greatest chapter. The world is waiting for you to step into the purpose God created for you, and no one's choice can stop His plan. You've got this, and I'm cheering you on every step of the way.